Welcome everyone. Today we're diving into an absolutely fascinating tactical chess match. It's a game that saw a completely dominant Manchester City somehow held to a 1-1 draw by a really disciplined and smart Chelsea side. It was a classic game of two halves, a real story of strategy and counter-strategy. So let's get right into it.
It's the age-old football puzzle, isn't it? You see one team with all the ball, all the chances, all the pressure, and yet they just can't get the win. That's the big question we're going to unpack today. How on earth did Mauricio Pochettino's Chelsea manage to build a cage around Pep Guardiola's champions?
So, this was the final result, a 1-1 draw. Chelsea actually struck first, right before the break, and it was a former City man, Raheem Sterling, who got the goal, a perfect reward for their first-half plan. But, City fought back. Of course they did, and Rodri grabbed a late equalizer. The scoreline tells you it was a close game, but the tactics tell you how it was so close.
We're going to break this down in three parts. First up, we'll look at Pochettino's absolutely masterful first-half game plan. Then we'll analyze Guardiola's crucial adjustments in the second half, and finally, we'll get to the real heart of it. Why, despite all that dominance, City just couldn't find that winning goal.
Okay, Act 1. This one belongs entirely to Chelsea. For the first 45 minutes, they put on a defensive clinic. They literally built a tactical cage around one of the best attacking teams in the world, and it was all built on one key idea. And that idea was the mid-block press. Now, this isn't just about parking the bus and defending deep. No, it's an active, really intelligent system designed to confront City in the middle of the park, to force them into mistakes, and create chances to counterattack. And let me tell you, Chelsea executed it to perfection. So, how'd they do it? Well, it really came down to three perfectly coordinated steps. First, and this was absolutely crucial, Conor Gallagher's entire job was to shadow Rodri, City's deep-lying playmaker. Step 2, the wingers, Sterling and Palmer, they tucked way inside, staying super narrow, to just clog up the middle of the field. And third, they set a trap. They basically invited City to pass the ball to Manuel Akanji, daring them to build their attacks through their less confident ball-playing defender. And this quote, man, it just sums up the whole plan, doesn't it? The key insight is that if you can neutralize Rodri, you completely disrupt City's entire rhythm. Gallagher's discipline was just incredible. He was constantly using his cover shadow to press City's defenders, but always making sure that passing lane to Rodri was blocked.
And you could see the effect almost immediately. With their main highway forward completely blocked, City's most dangerous players, we're talking Kevin De Bruyne and Julian Alvarez, they had to drop deeper and deeper and deeper just to get a touch of the ball. This pulled them right out of those dangerous areas and totally messed up City's attacking structure.
And boom, Chelsea's whole strategy pays off perfectly for the goal. City's vulnerable shape gets totally exposed on the counter. A rare bad touch from De Bruyne, the defenders are caught way too high up the pitch, and suddenly Raheem Sterling has acres of space to run into, cut inside, and finish beautifully. That goal was born directly from Pochettino's game plan. So at halftime, the underdogs were in front. Chelsea's plan had worked flawlessly. They frustrated City. They forced them into really uncomfortable positions, and they took their big chance when it came. But the game was far from over. And that brings us to Act 2. A manager like Pep Guardiola is just not going to sit back and watch his team get outsmarted. The second half was all about his response, his tactical gambit to try and wrestle back control of this match. The first thing he did was change the personnel. Alvarez off, Bernardo Silva on. And the thinking here was pretty obvious, right? Pep sacrificed a forward to get another elite, press-resistant midfielder onto the pitch. The goal was simple: get more quality and get more control. The second change was positional. Manuel Akanji, the guy Chelsea had been targeting in the first half, dropped out of that high midfield role and into a much more conventional back four. This did a couple of things. It created a more solid defensive base, and crucially, it freed up Kyle Walker to provide constant attacking width all the way down that right flank. And the impact, it was huge. With Bernardo Silva adding that control and Kyle Walker stretching the pitch wide, suddenly Kevin De Bruyne was free to operate exactly where he's most dangerous, in the final third. City started switching the play from side to side, creating these dangerous overloads and just pinning Chelsea back. And all that sustained pressure, it eventually paid off, leading to Rodri's deflected equalizer in the 83rd minute.
So, City were level. They'd solved the tactical puzzle, and they were now completely dominant. Which brings us to our final act. With all of that pressure and all of those chances, why on earth couldn't they find a winner? Look, Pep's second-half plan absolutely worked. It created a relentless wave of attacks and some really clear-cut chances. But football isn't just about tactics on a whiteboard. On the day, they're finishing, it just wasn't good enough. And one player, in particular, had a day he'd probably rather forget.
And that player was Erling Haaland. He had 9 shots in this match. Just let that sink in for a second. 9. For a striker of his unbelievable quality, you'd bet your house on him scoring at least one of those.
And we're not just talking about pot shots from 30 yards out. The data completely backs this up. His expected goals, or XG, from those 9 shots was 1.71. Now what that means is, based on the quality of his chances, a typical player would be expected to score almost 2 goals.
And here it is, the killer statistic. This was the most shots Erling Haaland has ever taken in a single Premier League game without finding the back of the net. It was, statistically speaking, one of his most wasteful performances ever in a City's shirt. Just unbelievable. So when you put it all together, the story of this draw is really 4 stories in one. Pochettino's first-half plan was a tactical masterclass. Guardiola's second-half response was equally brilliant and took back control of the game. But City's finishing was just woeful, and they wasted huge opportunities. And finally, you have to give credit to Chelsea's resilience. They bent, but they didn't break, and they earned that point through sheer discipline.
Which kind of leaves us with this final thought, right? We can analyze formations and pressing triggers and tactical tweaks all day long, but at the very highest level of this sport, how often does a massive result just hinge on that one simple human moment? A world-class striker just having an off day and the ball just refusing to go in. It's what makes this game so unpredictable and honestly so compelling to watch.